chapter, Evans tries an O level. This chapter is penned by Colin Dexter. The story Evans tries an O level is about a cunning prisoner, Evans, who makes a plan to escape from the prison on the day of his German language O level exam. Do you think he might have succeeded in escaping from the prison? What did the jail authorities do to protect the invigilator? Read the story to find out who was Evans and what did he do to escape from the jail. The story starts with a telephonic conversation between the governor and the examination board secretary. The prison authorities want to conduct an O-level exam in German language for a prisoner named Evans. The secretary asks about the venue of the exam and also about the invigilator for it. The governor replies that the exam can be conducted in Evans' cell and an invigilator could be appointed for the same. So this is how they both then end their conversation by deciding on how and when the examination will be conducted. Now, a senior prison officer, Jackson, who visits Evans' cell to conduct an inspection, finds out that Evans was not looking presentable. He was not ready to appear for the test. When he visits Evans' cell to conduct an inspection, he inquires if Evans had any weapon with him. Any weapon that could have been hidden. When he was checking the same, Evans was staring at him. Evans knew that it won't be easy for him to escape from the prison. Evans had successfully escaped from prison earlier also. And this is how the episode gave him the name of Evans the Break. The governor was not ready to take any risk with this as it could bring a bad name to him. Jackson and Stevens checked the cell thoroughly. They had taken away his nail scissors earlier, and Jackson ordered Stevens to take any other weapon or any other sharp tool that he had with him. Stevens was also asked to take away Evans' razor blade as soon as he had shaved. Jackson ordered Evans to take off his hat but left it because Evans requested him not to do so as it was his lucky hat for the exam. All sorts of arrangements were made to keep a check on Evans. Even a microphone was placed in his cell. What happens on the day of the examination? On the day of the examination, McLeary, the invigilator, reached the prison and was assisted to the cell by Stevens. The governor was informed that the exam was about to begin and that the cell did not have any weapons which Evans could use to escape. So this is how the jail authorities or the prison authorities did make sure that Evans was not left with any sharp tool that he could use to escape.
In the little lodge just inside the prison's main gates, the Reverend McLeary signed his name neatly in the visitor's book. As he was about to enter the prison to conduct the examination, he saw that Evans was there in the cell facing the door. He sat quietly at the farther of the two tables, his whole attention riveted to a textbook of elementary German grammar. Stevens took the key from its ring and the cell lock sprang back with a thudded metallic twang. So, this is how Evans was trying to pretend as if he was preparing for his exam. As we read further, we learn that it was about 9:10 a.m. when the governor switched on the receiver. He had instructed Jackson to tell Evans of the temporary little precaution, and that was only fair, he thought. Why was it so? As if Evans wouldn't spot it, they had made all the arrangements. They had also set a mic in the cell. But wasn't it all a bit theatrical, schoolboyish almost? How on earth was Evans going to try anything on today? If he was so anxious to make another break, why in heaven's name hadn't he tried it from the recreational block? Now, there were so many questions, and here the officers were really inquisitive to know more about what he could do. Apart from this, we see that the examinee and the invigilator had already been introduced by Stevens when Jackson came back and shouted to McLeary through the cell door, "Can you come outside a minute, sir?" "You too, Stevens." So this is what they wanted to check with McLeary, if he was carrying anything with him that could be used by Evans so that he could escape. Now, for the first quarter of an hour, Stevens had dutifully peered through the peephole at intervals of 1 minute or so, and after that, every 2 minutes, at 10:45 a.m., everything was still all right as he looked through the peephole once more. It took 4 or 5 seconds, no more. What was the point? It was always more or less the same. So when Stevens was peeping inside the cell, and when Jackson was invigilating and inspecting, he thought that everything should have been all right. But then when McLeary was present in the cell, they doubted if he could have carried anything that would really be harmful for them. At 11:22 a.m., Jackson shouted along the corridor to Stevens. The governor wanted to speak with him. "Hurry, man," he said. Stevens picked up the phone apprehensively and listened to the rapidly spoken orders. Stevens himself was to accompany and McLeary to the main prison gate. So this is how, after the examination was conducted, it was to make sure that McLeary left the cell premises safely. What did they see next? Did the governor and his staff finally heave a sigh of relief? Not really. Stevens felt pleased that the governor had asked him and not Jackson to see McLeary off the premises, and all in all, the morning had gone pretty well. But something stopped him from making his way directly to the canteen for a belated cup of coffee. He wanted to take just one last look at Evans. Still, after the examination was over, the officers were really not convinced that the things were under control. So this is what they wanted to cross-check time and time again. He re-entered the D wing, made his way along to Evans' cell, and opened the peephole once more. Oh no, Christ, no! There, sprawled back in Evans' chair, was a man. For a semi-second, Stephen thought it must be Evans. A grey regulation blanket slipped from his shoulders. The front of his closely cropped, irregularly tufted hair, awash with fierce red blood, which had dripped already through the small black beard and was even now spreading horribly over the white clerical collar and down into the black clerical front. So this is what he could see when he came back to check whether everything was all right in the cell. Stephen shouted wildly for Jackson. and the words appeared to penetrate the curtain of blood that veiled McLary's ears, for the minister's hand felt feebly for a handkerchief from his pocket and held it to his bleeding head, the blood seeping slowly through the white linen. He gave a long, low moan and tried to speak, but his voice trailed away. And by the time Jackson had arrived and dispatched Stevens to ring the police and the ambulance, almost immediately sirens were sounding. Prison officers barked orders. Puzzled prisoners uh, pushed their way along the corridors, and the doors were banged and bolted, and phones were ringing everywhere. So there was great chaos. The officers seemed to have been rushing from one corner of the premise to the other to check whether Evans was there. And within a minute, McLary, with Jackson and Stevens supporting him on either side, his face now streaked and caked with drying blood, was greeted in the prison yard by the governor, perplexed and grim. So McLary seemed to have been injured, and the officers were trying to comfort him. A fast approaching siren wailed to its crescendo. The great doors of the prison yard were pushed back, and a white police car squealed to a jerky halt beside them. Detective Superintendent Carter swung himself out of the passenger seat and saluted the governor. "What the hell's happening, sir?" And turning to McLary, "Christ, who has hit him?" he asked. So this was the reaction of Mr. Carter when he happened to see that the officers were trying to comfort and help the person who was highly injured. Here we learn that Evans had settled himself comfortably on the back seat and grinned happily. So the injured man, who happens to be taken to the clinic, was comfortably well set in the car, and he seemed to have been happy. "Nothing really. I just happened to notice that you have got some O-level Italian class coming up next September. That's all." But here the speaker asked, "What about Newbury?" suggested Evans. Okay, he was Evans and he raised the question, what about Newbury? They can head to the new spot. Apart from this, what we learn is that here McLady, who happens to be injured, was just to make sure that Evans escaped from the cell. So Evans, here in disguise, tried to escape, and he was really successful in doing so. So the story ends with a suspense, and here we learn that McLary, who was supposed to be the invigilator, was a parson, and he was appointed by the examination board to act as an invigilator. But on the contrary, Evans tried to mislead and misguide the officers and the invigilator and successfully escaped from the prison. Read the story and try to answer the questions in your own words.